Great to have you here with us. We are going to be talking about betrayal and trust. Ooh, it's going to be a good one. So, I am Coach Pamsky. I work with women who are coming from dysfunctional homes and situations, and I help them overcome the effects of being in those situations. So, I talk a lot about uh, overcoming imposter syndrome and low self-worth and being able to set boundaries and how do you trust again. Yep, that's our topic today. And I have the Pamsky's Place, a virtual life learning center where we do talk about these different topics. And I'm all about self-care and the 6 pillars of self-care. So I have my friend here, Debbie, who is my co-host. Love having her with me. And I would like you, Debbie, to introduce yourself.
Well, sure. My name is Debbie Dowling-Waba, and I am the founder of Anxiously Overcoming, where I help women to cope, manage, and redirect their anxiety so they can get back to doing the things that they love doing and not have to sit in the anxiety and curled in a ball and not doing all the things they love.
Yes, so good, so good. Alrighty, so we're gonna start this out talking about betrayal. Yuck. I think this is something that we never look forward to happening. We always hope it doesn't. And a lot of times when it does happen, it wipes the feet out of underneath us. And but I think we all experience some level of betrayal in our life. So that's why I think that this is important. So the first half of it is going to be about betrayal. And then the last half is going to be about trust, or I don't know if it'll be evened out that way, but because honestly, when it comes to betrayal, I really don't think we need to say a whole lot about it because I think we all understand it and it does not feel good. But I think it is important that we do discuss it some because we can get stuck in some of the emotions that we feel when we've been betrayed, and then that holds us prisoner. And there are some things that we need to do to rise us up out of that pit of those emotions. So I think it's important that we talk about, but we also need to talk about trust because when you are betrayed, trust is hard. And in the description of this live, when I put in there, how do you start to trust after betrayal? Or do you? Because there are certain situations where trust may not be deserved. And it's not because of you, it may be because of the other person. So we're going to get into all that. But Debbie, have you ever felt betrayal?
Oh, yes, I have definitely felt betrayal, and it's not a good feeling at all. And, sometimes it's hard to come back from, and it takes you a long time to get through it because you wonder, what was it that I did wrong? Did I do something wrong? Was it me? Was it the other person? Like what really just transpired in that? And sometimes you can blame yourself and it's not you, it's the other person, but there's a lot of guilt in that because you wonder, well, what did I do? So, yes.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. It is something that I think that's a really good thing to bring up is that most of the time we do have that question like, what did I do? We self-absorb it. And I think that's what betrayal can do to us is make us feel like we did something wrong when in fact we may not have done anything wrong. Now, I will say in any situation, I think it's good for us to examine ourselves and ask a question similar to that because sometimes when a circumstance happens, it is not just the other person. There are times where we have maybe played a part in the relationship dissolving or argument happening. There we may have some kind of way that we contributed to the circumstance, but that doesn't mean that we're fully responsible. And I know that it is easy to take that on yourself and say, well, I must have done something wrong. It must be because of me. If only I would have or could be. And we have to be careful of that because often betrayal isn't really about you, it's about the other person and what's going on inside of them and how they're behaving because of what's inside of them. So there is this balance of making sure that you're taking responsibility for your part or at least examining it and seeing, is there anything that I did that I maybe I could have done differently? Again, we say this a lot, but this is when it's good to have someone to evaluate with you because sometimes you can't see it, or sometimes you will take it so far that it becomes self-loathing. And Debbie, I'm with you. I've done that. You know, I've had lots of betrayal in my life. I think I came out betrayed, honestly, but it is hard not to take it personal. And a lot of times that's because there is a sense of low self-worth. You know, we dump it all on ourselves. So there are different types of betrayal. And depending on what has happened to you, it can be devastating, especially if you didn't see it coming. I think that's the toughest of them all. I was in a relationship where people tried to tell me. I mean, they were warning me left and right, but I ignored the warnings because I loved this person. They would never do that to me. And in fact, after a few years, and yes, it took a few years for it to surface, the betrayal it hit me hard. And everything that everyone was trying to warn me of was in my face and it hurt. And I was devastated. It took my breath away. It sank me for a good while because I just didn't see it coming. Has that ever happened to you, Debbie, where you had people that tried to warn you and and you're just ignoring that because you just don't wanna believe that that person would hurt you like that?
Oh, absolutely. And it's really hard, especially when you love somebody or you have put your full trust into somebody and others are telling you, this is going on or that's going on. You don't want to believe it. You do go into it like denial because you really don't want to see that that person could betray you that way because they're supposed to love you and have your back and be exactly like you're treating them or you're with them and you're respecting them and you're putting your trust in them and then for them to betray you, it's hard. It's a hard thing to cope with because you don't see it coming, and then when it does hit you, because you have heard what other people have said, and then it hits you, and you realize that this betrayal happened. You're like, oh my gosh, like the signs were there, the warnings were there, people were warning me, but I ignored it, and then
Yeah,
you're
and
mad at yourself for ignoring it.
well, and that is so true. So we're gonna get into that a little later because that's all about trust. But yes, so true. And there are three types of betrayal. There is the personal betrayal where people are backstabbing you, or lying to you, or they do something that personally hurts you. And then there is professional betrayal, where in a workplace, in your business, if you're an entrepreneur, you're running a business, it could be on your team, it could be clients that has happened, or where maybe you have coworkers, your boss betrays you. And then there is the here we go, self betrayal, where we betray ourselves. and even sabotage ourselves.
Mhm.
That is gonna be a topic that we're gonna do all on its own for sure, because we could say a lot about that. We'll talk a little bit, but that is definitely a good topic to talk about later. And that's where you betray yourself, where you don't do the things that you say you're gonna do, where you don't uphold, your what you need to be doing, and then you don't trust yourself. So we're gonna talk more about that with trust too. But in this, when you think about betrayal, there's so many emotions that come with it. Think about the last time someone betrayed you. What did you feel? Was it maybe anguish and pain? Were you angry? That's usually my first response is anger. I get angry very quick because I hate injustice, and betrayal is a form of injustice. And whether it's for me, whether it's something that's happened to me or something that's happening to someone that I love, betrayal just makes me angry. And I've had to trace it back to what is it about it that causes that? And it's because it's unjust. Someone didn't deserve that betrayal. And it hurts. And it hurts me to watch other people hurt. Another one is confusion. Wow. How many times have you been betrayed? Betrayed is linked with loss, because usually when there's a betrayal, there's a loss of some sort, loss of trust, loss of a relationship, loss of what you thought this person meant to you. And so there's definitely a grieving process that happens with betrayal. But think about how when when you were betrayed, how confusing was it for you? You think this person's got your back. You think this person has your best interest at heart, and yet they betrayed you, and it's so confusing in your heart and your head. Debbie.
Yes, and I think I know for me, I feel like betrayal, I go through all the stages of grief because there is no one emotion attached to the betrayal. You are going to be angry. You are going to be sad. You are going to be confused. I mean, you're going to go through the whole gamut of emotions. The angry, being angry with yourself, being angry with that person, being sad that it happened. So I think that when you go through betrayal, and every person's going to go through it differently. I mean, that's just human nature. But um, feel those emotions, let those emotions happen, and face those emotions because, and I always say it, the hardest person to face is ourselves. So once we know who we are, it will help us to get through those things faster because we realize it's really not about us, it's about the other person and their poor decisions.
Absolutely. And I can tell you that betrayal has made me have some self-doubt, because when betrayal happens, you start wondering, well, did I really know this person? Did I trust too easily and gave my trust too quick? Why did I not see the signs? And then back to, what is it about me? Is there something wrong with me that that person betrayed me? Was I not good enough? Did I not do enough? And so there's a lot of self-doubt when betrayal happens. And that's why when we talk about trust, we need to look at, okay, how do we start trusting ourselves? Because if we have that self-doubt, it doesn't mean that any of those things are true, but what it does do is it jabs at how much we actually trust ourselves. So we'll get into that a little more here in a bit, but I want to continue on with betrayal, because the next question might be, well, what is it that we need to do? What do we need to navigate through if betrayal has happened? And one of the first things I'm going to say is deal with your emotions first before you do anything. If you are betrayed, if someone has done something to you that has really hurt you, Work through your emotions before you do anything. Because if you do not, you will act out of anger and out of hurt. And then you might have some regrets because your actions may not be what you would really want them to be. You may say things and do things that later you're going to think, oh my goodness, why did I do that? That is not what I wanted to say or do. You're working out of emotions, and emotions can be high, and you will do things out of emotions that you normally would not do. And here's the thing, we do not want to send ourselves back into that spiraling pit of self loathing and I'm not good enough. And that's exactly where you're going to be if you react from your emotions. What do you think,
Yes,
Debbie?
absolutely. I think once you deal with your emotions, then you can choose to either react or respond. And when you go and you face your emotions first, you're definitely going to fall more on the line of responding, and you have that time to think of what it is that you want, how you want to respond, what you want to do, what you want to say, what you don't want to say, what you don't want to do. So this way, you're coming from a place of um, what's the word I'm looking for? You're coming from a place of you've dealt with your emotions, and it's not just a like a instant reaction. You've had the time to process it and to sit in those emotions and to feel what it is you needed to feel so that you can respond in a way that doesn't have repercussions or doesn't make you look bad. It's just a matter of being able to voice what your opinion was, voice your what you think is your blame in that, and then moving on from it.
Absolutely. Yeah, the next thing I think that we really need to look at with betrayal is having a support system, having a buddy, a coach, a mentor, a counselor that can help you navigate what the next steps are, because the next step after having that support is going to be confronting. And you say, "Do I always have to confront?" And I'm gonna say, most of the time you do. You should. Confront is not a bad thing. Confront means that you acknowledge what has happened, you deal with your emotions, you prepare for the confrontation, and then you go to that person and you let them know how they've hurt you in a loving way. You don't go with an attacking attitude, because if you do that, the walls are gonna go up, they're gonna become defensive, and nothing is gonna get solved. But if you don't go to that person, then they and you act like everything is okay, guess what you're gonna do? You're gonna have this resentment inside of you, and that person may not even they may not even know that they betrayed you. And you say, "Is that even possible?" Yeah, that is possible. There are times when there are situations where people do things and they don't realize that you took it as a betrayal. And if you never confront them, guess what? They don't even know that this exists. And yet it's a wedge between you and them, and it causes um, communication problems, it causes avoidance, things like that. So you do most of the time need to confront this person. However, there's a way to do it. The other reason that you need to do it is because they are the person that you have a problem with. So let me ask you this. If you're listening, I'm asking you this question. How many times have you felt betrayed and you didn't go to the person and confront them? You went to everybody else and complained about that person. "I can't believe that they did this to me and they did XYZ, and I'm just so angry." And then you go to the next person. "I can't believe this person did this to me and they did XYZ. I can't believe they did that." And yet, who do you not go to? The person that you really should go to, because they're the one you have the problem with. Now, I'm not saying this is easy. Confrontation, none of us really enjoy confrontation, but confrontation does not have to be a bad thing. There are many times where if you have your support person, you plan out what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, how you're going to keep your emotions in check, what are you going to do if the conversation gets heated. If you have that all set up before you have the confrontation, when you go to that person, you're prepared. You're ready, you're armed, and you know what you're going to do, and you can do it with love and respect. And I know it is hard to have respect for someone that betrayed you, but you can still have respect for them as a person. And when you confront them, you do it with love. And the results of that can, if the other person is receptive, it can actually build your relationship stronger. Here's a thing I want you to hear me say. When you go into a confrontation and you're about to ask the questions that you need answered as to why this person did what they did, you need to be mentally and emotionally prepared for their responses. And you say, well, how do we even know what their responses are going to be? We don't. We don't always know. If we know the person well, sometimes we have an idea, but we can never really predict what other people are going to do, nor can we control that. So you can go in prepared for, well, if they get angry because I'm confronting them about this, then you need to have a plan what you're going to do if they get angry. And you know yourself. You know when someone else is angry what happens to you. Your level starts to rise. Well, you need to have a plan as to what are you going to do if your level rises? And how are you going to handle that? Are you going to pause? Are you going to take a step out? Are you going to say, "Hey, this is starting to get heated. I love you. I want this to be something that we can work through." But try not to avoid. It's what our first instinct is to avoid a confrontation because we don't like it. It's not comfortable. It doesn't feel good. But I can tell you, 98% of relationships probably could be mended or at least parted on good terms if there can be a confrontation, if there can be hey, let's talk about this. And sometimes that confrontation, even if the other person isn't really willing to talk, or even if they're in that place where they're not mentally or emotionally mature enough to have that confrontation with you, you're still good because you at least tried. And you can walk away feeling good about yourself because you took the steps that needed to be taken. And that means that you're at that level of maturity and able to do things like that. And you can't control what they do. All right, Debbie, I know you got a mouthful on this one. I can feel it coming.
So yeah, so now what I want to say is when you're going around to everybody else and talking about what just happened in your betrayal, for me, it's one of two things. You are either avoiding the actual confrontation
Mhm.
or you're looking for acceptance and for validation on how you were betrayed.
Yeah.
So when you're going to other people and you're saying to them, "Oh, what they did," you're seeking the validation because for something you haven't faced yourself. So inside you don't have that validation already worked out. So you're trying to get it from other people. Well, guess what? It's not going to come from other people. They can say what you want, what they think you want to hear, but the actual validation has to come from within you.
So
That's
true.
yeah, and that's the first thing. And also avoidance because you're going to other people to avoid confronting that actual person that you need to confront. And you shouldn't. You really just need to turn around, suck it up, buttercup, and face them so that this way here you can have that discussion come to some kind of, may hopefully a resolution, maybe not a resolution, but maybe at least just a resolution for yourself. And then you can go on from there. Either you want to continue the relationship or maybe you don't want to continue the relationship. But at least you've had that conversation, you've aired what you're feeling, and you've had a chance to really express yourself from that emotional um, growth standpoint and from that emotional stability versus just reacting immediately. So that's what I wanted to share.
Absolutely. And, that validation, we have this desire to be valued. And so we go around with our cup trying to get it filled. Validate me, validate me. I need to know that I was right in this situation, or I need to know that it wasn't because of me. And a lot of that is because we feel that self doubt and that self loathing and that. I'm not good enough. So then we do go to other people and we try to get our cup filled by them. But that doesn't mean that is the solution. That actually is going to, you can get the validation from people, but it doesn't mean that it's truth.
It,
In order to solve this, you really have to go through the steps we just gave you. Self evaluate yourself, deal with your emotions. What are you feeling? Get a support person to help you and make a plan for how you're going to confront this person. And what are you wanting? What is your motivation in this confrontation? Is it so you can punish them? Well, then that's not why you should have this confrontation. Is it to tell them how angry you are and this is no, that is not why you're having this confrontation. If you're going to confront someone, hopefully you're confronting them to help you understand and to have some kind of end solution. Now, again, you can't control what other people do. They may not want a solution, or they may not have worked through their own. You may have worked through your emotions, but they may not have worked through theirs, especially if they're in denial and they don't even recognize that they betrayed you, which does not feel good for you. Because when you're betrayed and the other person doesn't even know that they did it, they're in that denial. Oh my goodness, you might as well just take a knife and stab yourself in the chest because it hurts. But you also have to be prepared for that because if they're in denial and they don't know that they betrayed you or they don't want to see it and then you confront them, all of a sudden all these emotions are going to reel up in them, and you have to be prepared for that because you've already dealt with your emotions, but they haven't. So that's when I say pause, check, say, look, I need to give you some time to work through your emotions. This is important to me. How about we get back together at whatever time and let's talk about this. Hopefully they will go get someone and help them work through their emotions. And you'll know the second time when you have another when you come back together to try to resolve this, or at least have some kind of um, end result in this, if they started getting upset again because they didn't work through their emotions, because some people won't, then that's when you have to say, look, you know what, this is important to me, but you're going to have to find someone to help you work through all that. And then let me know because I really do want to resolve this. It's tough. Relationships are tough because you have to deal with not just yourself, which is hard enough on its own. You have to deal with other people and their emotions and their thoughts and what they think is truth. And so it gets sticky and hard. But we were created for relationships and we get to decide who are the people that we're going to surround ourselves with and who are we not. And if someone continually betrays you, one, you need to have boundaries. And two, you need to start asking yourself, is this the kind of person that I should be around because they create a lot of negativity, and I'm trying to rise up out of that. So important to really evaluate the relationships that you have. So Debbie, well, I know that, you and I talk about relationships a lot. And when you have someone around you that just continually betrays you, I was in a relationship like that more than once. And at the time, I didn't really realize how negative it was. It felt normal to me. But when I did start recognizing, this isn't healthy, I had to take steps myself, but it was hard because I had abandonment issues. And if I left the relationship, well, there's another person that isn't around me anymore. And I took that on myself. Have you ever been in that kind of situation?
Yes, and when it comes to betrayal, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, because if you've had the confrontation with a person and you've explained to them your side, or you come from that emotional intelligence, and you say to them, maybe this is something that you need to work on, and they don't work on it, and they continue to betray you, that is, shame on you because you keep letting it happen. But it comes down to, the betrayal. I think, for me, it not so much, yeah, I guess you could say the abandonment part, but I think for me it's always been like I've just never felt good enough, like I never felt like I deserved it. So um I was going in with that, yeah, that whole I don't deserve this and it's going to go away anyway, so why why really bother, and why really um not put the effort in, but give the person the attention that they need, or put the effort in that they need. So, yeah, I totally get that whole thing.
Yeah. So I tell you what, let's go ahead and get into trust because I think that this is important, especially when we are in that place of, I'm not good enough. I can't do enough. Why does this always happen to me? Why can't I? When you see everybody else, why can't I? They get this, they get that, they do this, they do that. Why can't I? It does turn into a victim mentality. And we need to be super careful of that because you can live a long time in that. That will be another one of our topics here in the future. But when we talk about trust, trust is composed of four main things. And I want you to think about these four things. I'm going to mention them and then we're going to talk about them. One of them is ability. Okay. When you're talking about trust, we need to think about ability. And we'll talk about that here in a second. Authenticity is something else that is a part of trust. Integrity is another part of trust, and empathy. So, how do these four things actually play into trust? Well, let's start with ability. When you're going to be in a group of people, or you have a friend, or if you're going to start a job, think about this in different scenarios. But if we'll use this example, if you're going to ask somebody to do something for you, you need to know, do they have the ability to do it? Because sometimes we'll ask people to do something for us and they really don't have the capability, the capacity, or even just and when I talk about ability, what I mean is physically, emotionally, mentally, or maybe even financially to do what you're asking them to do. Physically, are they healthy enough to do it? Are does their body work enough to do whatever it is you're asking them to do or what you expect them to do? Do they have the strength? Are they older and maybe losing their strength and they just can't? Do they have health issues that might keep them from being able to do, and I don't mean just physical things, doing physical things. We're talking anything. Because when someone has health issues, guess what that affects? They're emotionally and mentally. And so you may wonder, well, why isn't this person doing this, or um why are they letting me down? Well, maybe mentally they're having a bad day. So when we talk about trust, you have to look at these things. What about authenticity? Are they who they say they are? Are they able to be who they portray themselves to be? Do they do what they say they're gonna do? It's a part of who they are. And you say, "Okay, but isn't that, um, also when you have integrity?" Well, if you are who you say you are, yes, that's a part of integrity, but let's take integrity a step further. I know people who say they're gonna do things and they don't do them, and they don't do it often. It's not just one time, because you know what? I believe everybody deserves a second chance. Because I believe that everybody should have a chance to show that that's not really who they are, that they just had something came up, something happened, and they couldn't keep their word. But I am gonna say, if you say you're gonna do something and you can't do it, you should let that person know ahead of time if you can. Now, I realize sometimes things happen right at the moment that you're supposed to be doing it, but you come back and you say, "Hey, I'm really sorry this happened," and but you know what? If you trust someone, you know they're gonna show up. You know they're gonna show up because their yes is yes and their no is no. But if somebody continually doesn't show up, or they're continually late, what does that do to you? Does that break your trust in them? Does your trust level start to go down because you can't rely on them? And that's what trust is all about, being able to rely on other people. And the fourth one is empathy. Oh, empathy is really important when you're talking about trust. People being able empathy means I understand how you feel. I'm coming along beside you in your emotions. Trust means that you know that people have your back. You know that they have your best interest at heart. And when these four things do not exist, it is hard to trust. And another word that goes along with trust is respect. We respect people we can trust. I'm going to say this because I think someone needs to hear this. If you've been going through life and feeling like people don't respect you, I'm going to ask you to look and see if you've betrayed trust along the way. And you say, "Well, no, I didn't. I haven't betrayed trust." Okay. Have you done the things you said you're going to do? Have you showed up when you said you were going to show up? Are you consistently late? Are you consistently not there for that person or for people? Because if you want integrity and you want to be authentic, people need to know that you're gonna be there, because I'm gonna say this, if you do not show up, if you're constantly late, you are telling other people that their time is not important, and you know what that says to them? I'm not important then. If you want respect, come back and look at yourself first, evaluate yourself, and see, is there some things that I'm doing that is not allowing people to have that respect for me? Do they trust me? All right, Debbie, that is a mouthful.
Yeah.
A mouthful. It was a lot. But, here's these 4 things: authenticity, ability, integrity, and empathy. What you got?
Well, first of all, when it comes to ability, you can't ask somebody to build a house that's never held a tool. So you have to know that they have the ability, and you have to admit when you have the ability or not, and they have to admit that to you. So knowing their ability is definitely an important thing, because if I'm not capable of doing something, I'm going to say, you know what, I would love to help you, but I have no clue what I'm doing. But if you need me to sit there for moral support, I'll be there for that. But as far as actually helping you, I really can't offer that much. But if it's something I can help, I will. And I think that that's something that I had to learn, because I would be oh yeah, I can do that, and I really couldn't, but I would try. And then integrity, I think you always have to walk in your integrity, because if you are not doing that and being authentic, I'll tie those together. I don't know how to be anybody but myself, the good, the bad, the ugly. I just always have to be myself. I can't be something I'm not. So I expect that from people. And if I'm going to trust them, I expect them to be exactly the same way. And then, have that empathy for people. Understand that not everybody is where you are. And it may be emotionally they're not where you are. Maybe they're more emotionally intelligent than you. They've just dealt with and they've grown so much. Or maybe they're not where you are and you're trying to help them to get to where you are as you're continuing to grow up that ladder of emotional intelligence. So it just all comes back down to knowing that person, but more importantly, knowing yourself, and just always walking in your integrity.
Yes. Yes, and you hit a really good point. We can be people pleasers. We can be people who want other people's approval. And when we're thirsty for that, guess what? We will say yes to things that we don't have the capability to do. We don't have the time to do. May not even have the emotional capacity to do, but we will instantly say, yes, I will do that, with that hero mentality. And it's usually based on the fact that we're people pleasers and we want other people's approval. But then what do? We walk away after we have said yes, and then we grumble and we go home and we complain to our mates or our kids. Oh my God, I don't know where I'm going to fit this in. I can't. Why did I even say? I wish they would have even asked me. So, my rule of thumb is don't say yes, don't say no. Go. The first thing you should say is, "Thank you for asking. I need to think about that." Or, "Thank you for asking. I need to check with my family." Or, "Thank you for asking, but I wanna pray about that." Because you need to know that you can do it. And most people hate saying no. It's almost like confrontation. They hate saying no, because it might cause a conflict. So they instantly say yes. But if you can pause and say, I will get back to you, it gives you time not to run on your emotions and to actually think about it and ask yourself, do I even have the time for this? No. Do I even know how to do it? And do I have the time to learn it? No. So then you go back to them and you say, I really appreciate you thinking about me, but right now is just not a good time for me. So I'm going to have to say no. But, check with me another time, the next time you're doing this. It's a beautiful way to stop people pleasing. And as far as needing other people's approval, that's something you need to work on. You need to know who you are, and you need to know your purpose, and what are you here for? Because that will help you not need other people's approval. So moving
I just want to add
along.
to that really quick, because you were saying about sitting in it. So for me, if somebody asked me a question or asked me to do something, my immediate response is going to be either yes or no, if it's something I know that I can't do. But if it's something that I could possibly do, then I will sit and say, okay, I'll get back to you. because I have to see if there's a time or what's going on or whatever. But if it's something automatically I know that I can't do, I will either say yes or no. No, I can't. Yes, I can. And then go from there because sometimes, it's just not that I don't want to take the time to think about it, but thinking about it and coming back to it later is still going to come in the same result. So I might as well just say yes or no at that moment.
Well, and the thing is that most people, they don't they can't say no. They don't know how to say no. Or we can put that on the other side of the coin, and there are some people who say no to everything because they're blocked off and don't want anything to do with anything when they're missing out on great blessings and blessing other people. So most people, they don't know how to say no. It is not in their vocabulary, even when they know that they should say no right off the bat. And that's why I always say, like, someone like you who can do it, do it. If you know that you can't do it, then say no right away. Absolutely. But for most people, they don't know how to do that. So for them, they need to not say yes or no. Go think about it. Go. And most of the time it's because they may already know they can't do it, but they need to prepare themselves to say no.
And I used to be like that. And a lot of times I would say
Mhm.
yes to a lot of things, whether I could or I couldn't, but I would try to make it work. And it's just been through growth and realizing that in the end, yes, maybe I did really want to help them, but by saying yes to something I really couldn't do, it was hurting myself. And I just had to learn how to say no. And that was a hard thing, but now it's yes, no. And if it's something that I have to figure out, or maybe, it's something they asked me to do and maybe I don't want to do it, but I know they really need my help, or maybe it's something I'm not really capable of, or whatever. That's when I'll sit and think about it and get back to
Yeah, yeah. So when we talk about trust, trust is about you.
them.
You have to trust yourself first. And that's not always easy because how many times have you done something that you didn't want to do? Or how many times did you not do things that you should have done or you told yourself you're going to do? How many goals have you had that you didn't reach? How many times did you say you were going to lose X amount of weight and you didn't even get started? Or maybe you got started, but within 2 or 3 weeks you quit. See, I did it again. I'm just such a quitter. What you're doing is you're telling yourself you can't trust yourself. If you want to trust other people and you want other people to trust you, it starts with you. Trust is all about building a relationship with yourself, proving to yourself that you can be trusted by you. And it actually isn't all that hard. It's something that you have to be intentional about for sure. If you want to build trust, you have to be intentional about trusting yourself and doing those things that you said you were going to do. It's the same as you building trust with somebody else. Don't say something to yourself that you have no intentions on actually really doing. If you know that mentally you're not able to do what you just told yourself you're going to do, then tell yourself you can't do that. Maybe later, it's not something you may never do. It's just something that right now it's not a good time to do for whatever reason. But you have to build that trust with yourself first. And then what is amazing is you begin to trust other people. Now, when I say that, the first thing that comes in my mind is, yeah, but you can trust people too much.
Mhm.
Yes, you can. Too fast, too much, and then you get hurt. I'm talking about a healthy trust where you let your wall down some, you let people who truly are trustworthy to come into your life, come in to your wall, and you actually really trusting them. Because when you don't trust yourself, you're not going to trust other people. Nobody gets your trust. And some people are deserving of trust, but you never know it because you will never let them in. But again, it starts with you. You got to start trusting yourself.
So true.
All
So
right,
true.
Debbie. Yes.
And
Yes.
not only do you have to trust yourself, but it comes down to everything. You need to be able to trust yourself first. You need to be able to love yourself first. You need to be able to believe in yourself first. You are not going to get that from anybody else. Nobody's going to love you as much as you love yourself. Nobody's going to trust you as much as you trust yourself. So, knowing that, trusting yourself, loving yourself, just being comfortable with who you are and knowing who you are, then that is where your true happiness will come.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will say, because I'm a Christian, I will say there is only one other that can love me more than me, and that is my creator. And when it comes to trust and comes to our own the way we see ourselves, I always say we need to see ourselves through God's eyes because He's the one who created us. He knows how many hairs are on our head, which fascinates me because how many do we lose? He knows our ins and outs and he loves us and adores us. And if we could just see ourselves the way he does, our self-worth would be so much better. We would trust ourselves. And then we can be who we were created to be because we can trust other people. We can do the things that God has purposed us to do. And we can have that peace and that hope that I know we all want, but tend to have a difficult time achieving. So, in this, let's do this real quick because I see our time's about up. We need to be consistent. We need to have transparency. We need to have, of course, what we said, integrity. And there's another part to this is that we need to be good listeners.
Yes.
We need to be good listeners. Do you realize that in order for other people to trust you, you need to cultivate the ability to listen? And when we talk about listen, we don't mean just what people are saying, but what they're not saying too, their body language, listening to yourself. How many times have you really paid attention to what you're saying within yourself? That's a
Yeah.
good one. Because if you're not paying attention and you're not listening to what you're saying within yourself, you're going to miss some things that are important for you to know and some things that might need worked on. Some, and to be able to have grace and mercy towards yourself. So make sure that you are a good listener. People love listeners, good listeners. And a good listener doesn't just have their own agenda in mind. They have the other person's heart. They're interested and they will not try to speak over them. They will not overpower them in I know better than you, I'll up one you. No, they truly listen. If you want to gain people's trust, be a good listener, but make sure you're listening to yourself too.
Yes, you definitely have to listen to yourself. And, gut feeling, God whispers, whatever you want to refer to it as, when you have those feelings and you have that sense and you don't listen, sometimes you can have a lot of regret in that. And I know that anytime I've listened, I've wound up where I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to be doing. So I've learned not to ignore them and to pay attention to that. And if my gut is telling me no, then no. And if my gut's saying yes, let's do this. Okay, let's do this. Um, I mean, you do have to keep all your values and stuff and make sure that you're in alignment. But still, when you have to trust
Mhm.
yourself enough to listen and say, something, I just don't have a good feeling about this, but I know that there's a reason why I don't have a good feeling. So I'm just going to have to trust myself to know that I'm not supposed to be doing this, or I am supposed to be doing this. So it does come back to really knowing yourself and knowing what it is within you and who you truly are.
Yes, and We are comprised of our soul and our spirit. Our soul is our thoughts, our emotions, and our will. Okay. So I want you to chew that up for a minute. Our soul is our thoughts, our emotions, and our will. Our spirit is our intuition, our conscience, and our communion with God. Now you say, Pam, why are you even saying this? Because stop and think about this. If our intuition is a part of our spirit, and that is different than our soul, which most people don't know there is a difference between their soul and their spirit. And I can tell you that if you don't know there's a difference between your soul and your spirit, you're always going to live out of your emotions and your thoughts. But when you realize that you actually have a spirit, that you have intuition, that little voice that tells you, hey, something isn't right here. Maybe you shouldn't do this, or hey, something's going on here. When you're consumed by your emotions and your thoughts, guess what you're not hearing? Your intuition. It covers it up. And you say, Pam, well, aren't I supposed to have emotions and thoughts? Absolutely. But you are actually designed that your spirit is supposed to have master over your soul. Your intuition, your conscience, and your communion with God should be set higher and have master over your emotions, your thoughts, and your will. Imagine what life would be like if you weren't run, if you didn't, your whole life wasn't ran by your emotions. Every time something happened, your emotions just take you all over the place. Or what if your life was not all about your mind just going everywhere, those recordings playing over and over and over, and you're just so driven, and what happens? When your mind goes crazy like that, so does your emotions. But what if that didn't happen because your spirit mastered over that and everything filtered through your spirit first and then into your emotions and your thoughts? Whoa, what a difference, right? We usually have it this way. This is our soul. This is our spirit. This is where we live from. Man, this might get a little bit. I might feel my intuition or my conscience every once in a while. But what if it was like this? Do you realize that when we can live that, and that's not easy. I'm not saying this is easy. I'm just saying that it takes practice and it's a process and it's an every day, every week, every month, every year process, but we continually grow stronger and stronger spiritually, and we begin to realize that our emotions don't roll us like they used to. Our thoughts don't roll us like they used to. And it's all because it's being filtered first. It's amazing. Pretty amazing. Alrighty, so here we are. We're at the top of the hour, and we are so glad that you have been with us. Please let us know if you have any questions or comments. Put them in the comments. We will come back and we will check because we love to hear from you. And if you just have something that you would like us to know, put it in the comments. Thanks for being here. Until next time, have a great day.
Bye.
It's time to thrive while alive.